So please, if the panel would join me here on stage, that would be very welcome. We've now talked about food, we talked about farms, we're now moving to talk about forests. You may wonder why, because forests are the opposite, aren't they? I mean, they are where we don't have the food, where we don't have the farms, but actually no. Forests are very much part of the landscape that provides the solutions to the issues that we are talking about today. Forests provide water, forests provide biological diversity, forests provide climate protection, and forests provide food. They do it directly as forests, but they also do it indirectly in the sense that, well, the land that is today farms, the land that is today agricultural land, used to be forests. And that's what we're going to talk about now. We're going to talk about what is the future of forests in a world of growing population, of growing needs, of growing food production. What are the solutions that we can look at? Some of them we have seen in work for many years already. We've seen a focus on making sure that forest management gets legal. There's a lot of focus on forest legality. We've seen certification of responsible forest management in systems like the Forest Stewardship Council coming up, protecting high conservation values and other forest values. At the moment, we see a lot of discussion about no deforestation or zero deforestation, which comes both from a global market incentive and a market wish to make sure that production of agricultural things in particular doesn't cost the lives of forests, but also from a political interest as witnessed by the Paris agreements recently about making sure that the climate protection of forests can continue also for the future. In the panel here, we have 3 representatives who work from different angles on this issue of what are the future scenarios for forests. Dr. NAJIB ASMANI from the government of South Sumatra, very importantly, the government's role in making sure that prosperity can happen while we protect and manage forests. Aida Greenbury from Asia Pulp and Paper, very important in the sense of the engagement of big companies in forest management and a lot of new commitments coming from the company. And Tint, Thaung from the Center for People and Forest, very importantly talking about the role of communities and how can we make sure that communities in forest areas can also prosper. So moving into the panel, I would like to ask each of my 3 panelists to start by giving an introduction to how they see this issue of forest in a scenario of no deforestation in the future, and how does it fit with the role for food and agriculture provision.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I am NAJIB ASMANI. I am replacing the South Sumatra governor. He's apologized, cannot come here because of another tax in the parliament. South Sumatra is not a rich province in Indonesia, but South Sumatra have many things what we can need in South Sumatra. South Sumatra, the weight of South Sumatra is about 9.1 million hectares. Its population is about 8.1 million people. We have the forest is around 3.4 million hectares, consists of the conservation forest is around 790 hectares. Protected forest is around 570 hectares. Permanent production forest is around 1.9 million hectares. Production forest, convertible production forest is around 171,000 hectares. Total forest in especially for the industrial forestry is around 1.4 million hectares. not only forest, we have the palm oil plantation is around about 1 million hectares. Rubber plantation is around 1.4 million hectares. And we have the paddy area is around 600,000 hectares. Last year, we are visited by the uninvited visitor, the fire. The fire burn of our area is around 730,000 hectares. So all of we need supported. We supported by the many countries to extinguish the fire, but almost all of the countries give up to extinguish the fire. It is very difficult for our province to distinguish the fire. But learning from it, now we have already declared what we call the green growth development. We manage the landscape, the restoration of landscape with the many stakeholders, what we call the P4, public, private, and people partnership. So it is our effort to avoid the fire and the deforestation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Aida?
Thank you. I know I have limited time, so I have it written down to make it easy. Thank you for the introduction before. Let me start by responding to your point about zero deforestation. As you said before, there are a lot of companies the last 3 years who are committed to zero deforestation or zero net deforestation or no deforestation. But not so many people actually understand or have full understanding of what zero deforestation actually means and its impact to the local communities. Zero deforestation should be seen as one package which includes the protection of natural forests, the protection of peatland, but at the same time also respect to the local community who have the rights over the land. For me, Asia Pulp and Paper, as one of the key players in the pulp and paper industry, it means no more conversion of natural forest into industrial plantation, including forested peatland. However, it does not mean zero use of natural forests by the local communities. Local communities with valid right to the areas, which has been identified through the implementation of free and prior informed consent and also social conflict resolutions, have the right to use the forests and manage them sustainably for wood products and also other forest products. You see, the forest is the community's livelihood, and only a healthy ecosystem can guarantee food security, which is why we are gathering today. The relationship between food security and forest is very complex. Forests can provide food or support its production through agroforestry, but they can also provide key ecosystem services which are essential for securing agricultural productivity in the wider landscape. All of this closely linked with the livelihoods of forest communities, where these communities are not able to meet their food security and nutrition needs, they are more likely to resort to forest encroachment or further deforestation to expand their agricultural production or for generating more income. In reverse, further deforestation will increase the risk for food security. So it's like chickens and eggs. We established a very clear principle when we launched our forest conservation policy in 2013, that local communities would play a very crucial role as partners, not just as objects, but as partners in the implementation of our commitments. Not only that, but to ensure the long-term sustainability of forest conservation policy, we would also need to think about ways in which it could support economic development in these communities through participatory planning and also through learning from the local wisdom of the communities. More specifically, what we've done over the last 3 years is to use elements of our forest conservation policy or zero deforestation policy as the building blocks to achieve the creation of new business model a new business model which allow us to increase productivity while protecting forests and embracing the community as an integral part of our supply chain. We, the private sector, and the local communities are two of the groups with the biggest incentive to ensure the sustainability of forest landscape. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Aida. And the last introduction? Tint? Yep.
Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for having this opportunity. Thanks for inviting me on behalf of the Regional Community Forestry Training Center, also known as the Center for People and Forest based in Thailand. I try to understand this objective of this kind of forum is I understand that we all need to provide recommendations after this two-day event to mainly increase the productivities in all the 6 commodities that we are going to discuss. And at the same time, we want to improve the livelihood of the smallholders without having the major environmental impact in our practices. 6 commodities we are going to discuss in this forum. All of them are land-based commodities, forest-based commodities. Globally, about over 2 billion people rely on the forest, the land, direct or indirectly. Especially in the Asian Pacific region, over 450 million people rely on the forest resources. So when you talk about the business related to the land-based or forest-based, you need to consider concerns and also the voices of those local communities, including the indigenous people in the region. Let me explain a little bit more about why RICOF has been part of this global forestry movement. RICOF was established in 1987 and as an intergovernmental organization to mainly provide the capacity for the community forestry development in Asia and Pacific region. Eventually, we become a more independent international organization, and also we work with the many stakeholders, starting from the grassroots level, national level, and the regional level, as well as the global level. A number of areas we are addressing, especially for the building the capacity of the local communities, are more or less addressed into the global policy. Forestry sector has been tested many, many times throughout the generation. Forestry sector has been tested for the conservation. Forestry sector has been tested for the production. Forestry sector has been now tested again for the climate change, poverty reduction. You just name a number of the global policy issues. Forestry sector never stay away from those global issues. So when you talk about these things, RICOF trying to prepare to make sure whatever global policy happen, there are more or less effect to the local communities. So we are ready to support the local communities to make sure they understand what is going on, to make sure what they can do, to make sure their voices and their concerns are well respected and recognized by a number of the players. So with the current strategic plan, we are implementing a number of thematic areas. Out of that, the related thematic areas we are addressing related to this conference, to this forum, is promoting the forest tenure. Tenure security is really critical. Without having a secure tenure, you can't make sure the livelihood improvement of those local people. At the same time, we are also promoting the enhancing livelihood and market of the local communities. And the way they are doing their business, the way they are participating in the forest management, there must be some livelihood options for them. At the same time, one of the most important thematic area is a cross-cutting thing we are implementing. It's called the social inclusion and gender engagement. We want to make sure whatever program or projects we are doing, we want to make sure there's an inclusive growth and inclusive program and project activities to make sure especially the role of the women are considered and also they're encouraged. Some of the niche that we are promoting and we are providing the capacity is for example, like the EPIC, free, prior, informed, and consent. We are also part of the developing this training manual. Also, we are part of the developing this guideline as well. At the same time, we provide this kind of training to up to the grassroots level people. And another training niche for the RECOP is a participatory way of the managing the natural resources. We want to make sure everybody participate in this resource management issue. The last, not the least, is if you are not secure, if your security is not clear, there can be the series of the conflict, especially for this kind of business engagement and business development. You need to manage the potential conflict in advance so that we can avoid some of the violent conflict in the long run. So these are some of the niche that we are working together with the other partners. We try to create a platform to bring the public, private, and then communities to come to the same table to talk about the same issue, trying to find a solution together as well. That's the way we are standing in the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these perspectives on forest management and community engagement. One of the big dilemmas, in my perspective, on how we deal with forests is to find ways in which to maintain forest area while at the same time opening up for increased production of food, of pulp, of other things that we need to get out of our landscapes. And I would be interested in, and this is also one of the questions that have come from the audience, a perspective about what are the tools that we can use to make sure that increase in production can happen, while at the same time making sure that we do not destroy the basis for the production in terms of the forest areas.
Thank you. We have already initiated what we call the partnership in management of ecoregion or landscape. We has already declared it, supported by the AVP and IDH. We plan the green growth. We should effort to protect the forests simultaneously with the productivity of the agriculture, food agriculture. From the industrial forest plantation, each special provide 20% for the livelihood for the empowerment of people who lives around the HTE. So it is provide about around 100 million hectares for food crop. So even though South Sumatra in last year is we know have fire burning in the area, but South Sumatra surplus in rice productivity 1 million tons in this year. For the protection the area. Now, currently we supported by the INSPI from the Norwegia and from the UKCCU and IDH2 and Belantara 2. Now we start to restore the landscape in Dangku and Taman Nasional Sembilang Park. So, to empower the people who in palm oil, we has prototype about the sustainable palm oil ban. We supported by the Badan Pengelola Dana Perkebunan CPO PAN. Now we will replanting the palm oil area plantation from the people is around about 6,000 hectares. So it is our ways to protect the forest simultaneously with the to increase the productivity. For the avoid the fire, we design what we call fire care village, Desa Peduli Api. Now we have 118 Desa Peduli Api supported by many companies in South Sumatra. As you know, in South Sumatra, we have 150 each the company, the plantation of company plantation in South Sumatra. I think. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Aida, as APP, you have committed to not continue to convert natural forest into plantations. Does that mean that you will not increase your plantation area? How do you see the possibilities of increasing production of pulp going forward?
We will still possibly increase our plantation area, but we will not convert any more natural forest or forested peat in order to establish plantation. We will not develop plantation in violation of free and prior informed consent. We will not establish plantation in the area that still have social conflicts. So the policy, our forest conservation policy or zero deforestation policy will be continuously upheld in every expansion that we have, either in plantation development or in the mill expansion.
Thank you. Maybe you could also talk a little bit about other elements of changing your policies. I know that you are very engaged in forest restoration initiatives, as we also heard from South Sumatra, that finding ways in which to restore forest or to create connectivity between different areas of forest that have lost the connection with each other. That's also, I think, a major element of what you want to see happen going forward.
When we announced our zero deforestation policy in February 2013, there was no blueprint in our hands, so we basically had to continue implementing our forest conservation policy with the existing standard, like high conservation value standard, high carbon stock standard, free and prior informed consent standard, and how we implemented is basically trial and error. While we were implementing the forest conservation policy in our supply chain, we realized that it will not succeed without bringing together other stakeholders in the landscape. That is why in 2014 we launched our landscape approach to basically bring in all the stakeholders. We were working very closely with the governor of South Sumatra, Riau, West Kalimantan, and Jambi as well in the implementation of the landscape approach. And this is where a lot of our community-based programs will be implemented as well. In the last COP21, we made an announcement that we're going to implement 500 villages integrated forestry and farming programs in 500 villages, and to be implemented until 2020. That's one of the efforts to basically not only implementing participatory planning and learning from the local wisdom, but also try to holistically implement those two approaches and align it with our zero deforestation policy to bring in and to get the buy-in from the rest of the stakeholders in the zero deforestation.
Thank you, Aida. Tint, there's been some discussion about free prior informed consent as a way of making sure that communities can be engaged in these new solutions. Is that something that you would also see as the key, or are there other elements that need to be taken into consideration?
Thanks, Kim. Of course, EPIC is one of the tools that we should promote so that there will be a better understanding and better information. The most important thing is you need to provide the timely information, the right information to the communities so that they cannot left behind, also they can be part of this decision-making and planning process. There are a number of other tools of what we can provide, making sure that the communities can actively participate. Some of the project I can share the experience from the RECOFT involvement. especially recently we implemented a project funded by the USAID called the Green Mekong Grassroots Equity and Enhanced Network in the climate change, forest-based climate change mitigation and adaptation thing. In this project, what we learned is even in the national level, the understanding of this kind of the equity is quite different. Not many of them really understand what does it mean to them in their daily practice, even in the national level. It's much more difficult and more diverse, to mention this kind of terminology to the local communities. But this is a kind of principle we should promote. Whatever business you are doing, you should promote the equity issue as well. This is one of the examples. But at the same time, having said that, providing the timely information is very crucial so that the people can participate very actively as well. Another thing is when you talk about this smallholder, this morning also a number of discussion talking about the smallholder. What is the definition of the smallholder to you? Is it representing majority to the local communities, or some of the smallholder may not be local communities at all? They are just elite people, elite capture. They are just forming a small group to do the small business together. So that we need to make sure when you talk about the smallholder, should be the largely representative of the local communities, the most disadvantaged people, landless people. This morning also someone mentioned about the farm labor. They are really critical player in the landscape approach. When you talk about the landscape approach, we need to make sure their role and their concern must be well recognized. Thank you.
So thank you very much. I am told by the organizers that our time is up. I don't agree, because I think we should have a lot more time for this conversation, but I believe that our organizers have the last word on that. What I would like to do is to thank the panelists for their insights and for the points that they have raised with us. For me, the main takeaway points would be to say that we need to define what we do with our landscapes where to have forests, where to have agriculture, where to have these different things, and to find ways to do the right things that fit with the landscape in the places we do it. We haven't been good at that in the past, but I am absolutely convinced that we can get better at it in the future. We can restore landscapes. I think that's a major thing of what we need to do going forward, but everything we do needs to be with the engagement of the local communities through free, prior, informed consent, through making sure that their rights to the landscape are also respected. With those words, thanks to our panelists, and thank you all for the good questions that we have also received.